Hey guys, Joker from editing here. Real quick at the start of this video, I went ahead and I explained my entire character, right? I broke it down because there was a lot of questions in the last couple of videos about the character. So I went over everything. In case you don't want to watch it, I'll go over TLDR real quick, but I would really appreciate it since I did just spend like half an hour going over the entire character and explaining how it works. TLDR is Maxwell put out a character planner, and I'm going to have a link to it in the description if you just want to see the gear and the gems that I'm using. Then that's where you'll be able to find it. I do suggest watching or having the full video play out on a second screen. That way you understand how the character works type thing, because if you're using just like gas arrow, your damage is going to be extremely low. But yeah, that's pretty much it. On to the video. Yo, what is up, guys? Joker bringing you another video for Path of Exile 2 with my pseudo day 6 recap if my atlas will load. Okay, there we go. We are going to be running a T7 Waystone here real quick. Main reason why we're running a T7 Waystone is because it's the highest level Waystone I currently have. So I need to get more Waystones from this anyways, but the other reason is to show how the build works. The last couple of videos, I've gotten quite a few questions about the build, so it's had a lot more interest than I was originally thinking there was going to be, right? I didn't think there was going to be a super ton of people that were interested in a Poison Pathfinder, and oh boy, was I wrong. So let's go ahead and clear this so you can kind of see how it plays a little bit. Oh no, there's a mob that's not dying. We'll go ahead, we'll drop our arrow, we'll pop our poison, and oh, it's proximity. There we go. That's why it wasn't dying. It's because it's proximity. I was like, why is this thing just not dying? Um, Also, I potentially might be getting a lot more loot than you're used to because I do have actually a decent amount of rarity on the character. So but that's pretty much what this playstyle looks like, right? We run through, we poison stuff, we dodge roll, and poison prolif usually does do a lot of it for us. I want to try to find another rare because that first rare was a terrible showcase because it had the proximity on it. So majority of the time it just wasn't taking damage. That's why it took so long to actually die. Oh, cool. Breach is in a horrible spot, but this will showcase kind of how tanky this character is as well. So we drop down a couple of gas clouds, and then we just pop our Plague Bearer every now and then. And essentially, what this is doing for us, oh, there's a rare right there. What this is doing for us is it's prolifing through the entire breach since breaches are so dense, right? And because I recover HP every time a enemy that's poisoned dies because of lynching poison, as well as cannibalism, breaches are just a ton of free loot for me. And as you can see, I'm literally just face tanking everything as I try to run through. I'm going to pick a couple of these things up, and then I am going to go explain the character and how the character works. Okay, and we're back in our hideout. We finished the map, we finished looting. Let's go ahead and take a look at our setup, going over our skills. First, our main sixth link is Gas Arrow, and it has Deadly Poison, Chaos Infusion, Bursting Plague, Break Posture, and Corrosion on it. Honestly, the first three skills are all that matter, right? Bursting Plague, Deadly Poison, and Chaos Infusion. Because these last two, there's really nothing else that I was able to support it with, anyways. So I went ahead and I've just been memeing around, adding a bunch of stuff here. If I ever get hard stuck or feel like my damage is too low, I may actually make this into a six link, but that hasn't been the case just yet. So I'm just leaving it alone like that. Then we have Rain of Arrow. Previously, we were using Vine Arrow, and it was linked with the same things essentially. It had Withering Touch and it had Culling Strike. There was a comment that mentioned that that the Vine Arrow does not hit, and that is correct and incorrect. The Vine Arrow itself does not hit. So the little vine that shoots out of it and attaches onto enemies, that part does not hit. That is just a degen. However, the arrow hitting the ground and hitting the enemy, that is a hit, right? When you shoot it up and it comes down, as soon as it comes down, that counts as a hit in the little, it does a little AoE and it does a little hit splat. That's what was applying my Withering Touch and my Culling Strike prior. I saw someone mention somewhere, I don't even remember where it was, I do apologize, where they were saying that they were using Rain of Arrows to apply Wither. And I'm like, okay, that's actually pretty sick. So I just swapped it over and put Withering Touch and Culling Strike on Rain of Arrows, and it's on Expanse mainly for mapping. If I was going to be bossing, I would change this to where it's less AoE with like concentrated effect. That way my arrows hit the boss more often. But since I'm mapping and I want my arrows to hit as many things as possible, because I don't need a super ton of wither effect in mapping, I'm able to go ahead and just get like one stack on each enemy, which is like a 7 to 10% damage boost on everything, right? On top of that, the Culling Strike, since there is 38 arrows, I can drop it when the boss is at like 10, 15% HP, and it still ends up culling it because one of these 38 arrows just hits it when it's on the 5%. Now, moving on to Plague Bearer. Plague Bearer is going to be a vast portion of your actual damage in this build because it stores 8,323 poison damage, right? Now, the reason why this is a large portion of your damage is you're going to be using this to usually poison your toxic growth. And your poisoned toxic growth can do up to 100% more explosion damage, right? And they explode in poison. So, this is where your boss DPS is coming from, right? You have to be using Plague Bearer and you have to be using Toxic Growth. If you're just using Gas Arrow, you will have damage. Don't get me wrong, it won't be bad, but it will be significantly lower than if you're using Toxic Growth and Plague Bearer. Even if you're not using Toxic Growth, just when you're at 100% on your Plague Bearer, walk up to the boss and press Plague Bearer. They'll replace one of your weaker poisons with this new stronger poison, and it's just Chaos Mastery +1, so it's a higher level skill gem, right? Then we have Toxic Growth, which is tagged with Discombobulate, as well as Holy Descent and I still can't say that word. But this essentially makes it so my pods can add an additional poison, meaning that my pods can apply up until 8 poisons onto an enemy. Conk Ground gives me extra life regen and reduces the effect of curses. And then Discombobulate is helping me stun the boss because these pods explode in chaos and physical damage, right? Physical damage, chaos damage. I guess there's a little bit of other damage there too. But the main thing that they're exploding in is physical and chaos. So this is pretty much just helping me build up the stun meter on bosses. Then we have Wind Dancer, which is giving us more evasion, and Cannibalism is linked with us for life recovery on enemy killed. Then we have Alchemist Boon, honestly, not doing a super ton. It literally is just making me sustain my flask because I was potentially going to try Poisonous Concoction. So I threw this on forever ago. Really don't need it. And then the last thing we have is attrition. You have Culling Strike against rares and uniques that have been in your presence for at least a total of 33 seconds. This is partially redundant with our Rain of Arrow setup, but this part isn't. You deal 1% more hit damage to rares and enemies for every 2 seconds they have been in your presence, up to 54%. I am unsure of if this is working as I intend it to. I may take it off. I've honestly just been too lazy, but that's also why it's not supported by anything. Is I just have it there. Essentially, what it would be doing for me is the initial hit from Gas Arrow would go ahead and benefit from that. Not the poison damage at all, the initial hit, and then my pods exploding, right? Those exploding would benefit from it as well. So, in theory, what it's doing for me is I'm staying in a boss's presence, I'm dropping my toxic growth, and I am either using Gas Arrow or I'm popping my Plague Bearer and dropping a Rain of Arrows, right? So, more realistically, it goes Toxic Growth and then Rain of Arrows and then Poison. And essentially, what that does is that's applying Wither and a bunch of chunky poisons. Then from that point on, I just used Gas Arrow every once and again to apply additional stat to refresh the duration of my poison, right? Because in case you're unaware, that's what it does. Is once you are at poison cap, all it does is refresh your poison. I'm under the impression that higher damage poisons do overwrite lower poisons. I'm under that belief because I feel like I've seen my poison physically scaling when I go over and let's say I use Gas Cloud, but then I go over and I pop Plague Bearer. The amount of damage they take is significantly increased. So I believe higher strength poisons do directly overwrite the lower strength ones. And when you use Gas Arrow, all you're doing, you're not replacing your higher damage poisons, you're just extending their duration. That's my current understanding of how it works in PoE 2. Looking at my skill tree, we have Contagious Contamination, which is just poison prolif, right? Then we have Overwhelming Toxicity, which doubles the amount of poison that we can have on an enemy. And then we have Traveler's Wisdom. Honestly, these points are insanely good. Your first ascension, if you're lacking damage, you can get just 6 more passive points for the tree, which is really good. For the tree itself, we're coming down here through all of this projectile damage, and then we're getting projectile damage and attack speed. We're getting the chance to pierce right here, and we're getting projectile damage and projectile damage. We're coming up here to crippling toxins, and this has you getting a fat magnitude increase, right? That 25% increase. But then it also has your attacks maiming enemies, which means they are 30% slower. This is one of my defensive layers because it makes enemies take significantly longer to actually get to me. Then we have cat like agility, literally just for evasion. And then we have master fletching to boost the effect of our quiver. We have stacking toxins, giving us an additional poison. And we have lasting toxins, giving us poison duration and skill effect duration. This benefits us in two ways, actually, because not only is it making our poisons last longer, it's making our poison cloud itself last longer. Then we have freedom of movement, evasion, escape velocity, evasion, and move speed. Then we're coming over here, we're grabbing wasting, which is a lot of damage with hits against enemies affected by ailments. They're affected by poison, but more importantly, 15% increased effect of damaging ailments. So it makes my poisons last longer. And then these small nodes are magnitude. So really good right there. Coming over here, we have piercing shot and the node before it, giving us pierce chance. Honestly, since we're using gas arrow now, we really don't need this. So I think I just found points that I'm able to respec because yeah, we're using gas arrow and we're not taking advantage of the pierce anyways. So that might be a potential change. But then we're coming over here for proficiency. We're going to bestial skin for 100% increased invasion from our chest plate, and then enhanced reflexes for 8% dex and more evasion. We're coming up here to mental toughness, and we're grabbing all of these nodes just because this build actually does struggle quite a lot with mana regen. So that's why we're doing that. Then we're coming over here to leeching toxins. This is a huge part of sustain, especially before you get an aura or enough spirit where you can sock it in before you can sock it in cannibalism, right? This gives you 2% of life when a poisoned enemy dies. Well, recover 2 life on killing a poisoned enemy, so essentially when it dies. On top of that, it gives you 30% increased magnitude of poison. Then over here, we're taking dark entities and all of these nodes because poison is chaos damage. So this is literally just buffing all of my skills as well as making me do a lot more damage. Then we have magnitude, and escalating toxins. 10% increased poison duration for each poison you've inflicted up to recently, up to a maximum of 100. We are on average hitting people with, well, at least bosses with 10 poisons recently 100% of the time. So this is literally just doubling the poison duration for us. And we're doing that by the toxic growth, right? I shoot out 11 pods, they all explode, and then gas cloud is poisoning on its own. Then over here we have building toxins. Toxins can be targets can be affected by +1 of your poisons at the same time. So this is giving me a base of 3 poisons, and then we're getting the one from the node. We're getting the one from comorbidity. I hate trying to pronounce some of these things, right? But we're also getting this. So this is why our toxic growth applies 8 poisons when it explodes. And then we're coming up here and we're taking Wither away. This makes it so we have 20% increased withered effect on top of the fact that enemies in our immediate area are going to have Wither, right? And then Pure Chaos is really good because this is gain 11% of damage as extra chaos, and it's not of a specific type. So this is giving me 11% of my already chaos damage and my physical damage, and just giving me extra chaos damage equal to 11% of both of those. Looking at our gear, we have our bow, which is a cultist bow, and it has a lot of physical damage, +1 projectile skills, right? And the reason why this bow is so good, and this is actually one of the questions I got, is some of your links are lowering my damage. Well, that's most likely because you're using purely a physical bow, right? If we go ahead and take a look at this bow, it says 76 to 150 physical damage, right? So looking at that compared to this, you would assume that you have more damage with this bow if you're not familiar with the damage scaling. So gym levels is something that is really, really good. You're going to want a ton of those. That's the first thing that naturally makes this better. But the second thing that makes this better is the fact that I am using Chaos Infusion, and supported attacks gain 25% of damage as extra chaos. So that means that I'm gaining the six six to 8 fire damage. I'm getting 25% of that as extra chaos, but then the chaos damage, 25% of that, and the physical damage, 25% of that. I'm getting 25% of all of that as extra chaos. If you are using a bow like this, where it's purely a physical bow, the reason why you're losing out on so much damage and using chaos infusion, sorry, the reason why you're losing so much damage is the second line. Supported attacks deal 50% less non chaos damage. So if you have chaos infusion socketed in and a pure physical bow, you're pretty much just cutting your damage in half, right? Because the 25% of damage as extra chaos is going to be helping you, but not nearly as much as your 50% of less non chaos damage is hurting you, right? Because this pretty much just cuts the damage of the bow in half, this bottom line. It doesn't matter if you're gaining 25% of the damage as extra chaos, you're cutting your damage in half by being a purely physical bow. That's why an occultist, an advanced cultist bow is significantly better of a base type to use on a poison ranger build, because you're going to be naturally scaling projectile damage as well as chaos damage. And these are both things that this bow can have and you can benefit from, right? You're going to be scaling that chaos damage on the bow naturally by every point of just chaos damage increase that you get on the tree. And poison is determined by 20% of the physical and chaos damage that was used to apply it. So we went over that. Let's go over my ring. Honestly, the main modifiers that apply on my ring, which is pretty godly, are life and chaos damage. If you have a ring like this, that just has life and chaos damage, that's all you need, right? Look at this other ring. That's essentially all it is. It's life and it's chaos damage. You don't need a ring like this. You just need a ring that has life, res, and chaos damage. My amulet, once again, you don't need an amulet like this. You just need life and res. That's it. I don't know if chaos damage can roll on an amulet. If it cannot, then you're going to want it to have spirit, right? Because spirit's going to be giving you more auras. For the helmet, life, resistance, this only has resistance because it has 26 rarity. And right now I'm trying to get higher level items, which you get by killing stuff with higher level rarity. It's complicated. That's not going to be in the scope of this video, but that's why my personal helmet doesn't have life. Then my chest plate, we have life, we have spirit, and we have res. My gloves, we have physical damage, which is applying to our poison. We have cold damage, which is applying to our chaos infusion, right? Because even though it is getting cut in half, half of this cold damage is still going over and being converted to chaos damage for me, and it has rarity and res. My belt, we have life and res. My boots, we have movement speed and res. Do I not have life on my boots? I don't have life on my boots. Holy shit. Okay. And then my quiver, we have physical damage, damage with bows, level of projectile skills, right? Those are the main things that matter. The mana on enemy killed is also really good because every time an enemy dies, since we're killing so many enemies, we're pretty much always at max mana. My flask is using 45% increased recovery rate and gains 20.25 charges per second. And I have essentially that same thing on my mana flask, and it has recovery applied is instant. So I rarely have to push this, but it's always at 100% charges anyways. So it's perfectly fine. Then we have my charm, which is literally just rarity. Once again, remember how I said I was trying to farm those higher level bases? And that's because of rarity. And the reason why I can say that is this amulet dropped like this. This dropped for me. This was a tier 2 solar amulet, and it this is what it dropped as. So that's why I started stacking up as much rarity on my character as I could, as well as you get overall more currency and higher value currency if you stack rarity as well. Hopefully this video is not insanely long. Holy shit, we're at 21 minutes. Okay. Uh, that's going to be the end of this video. Leave any comments that you may have in the description, and I'll answer them to in the description in the comments, and I'll answer them to the best of my ability. I believe I addressed most things, but yeah, that's pretty much it. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to stay up to date with this and future content. And until next time, take care.